Chapter 1. The Vanishing. Montgomery, Vermont is a picturesque town, surrounded by lush forests and rolling hills, where the community is tight-knit and the pace of life is slow. The town's charm lies in its simplicity. Quaint houses line the main street, and the local diner is a gathering spot for resident spot. It is here, in this serene setting, that Brianna Maitland grew up. At 17, she was known for her bright smile and ambitious nature. She worked at the Black Lantern Inn, a popular local restaurant, balancing her job with school and her dreams of a brighter future beyond the town's borders. On the evening of March 19, 2004, Brianna finished her shift at the Black Lantern Inn. The restaurant was bustling, as usual, filled with the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation. Brianna was a diligent worker, always attentive to her customers and quick to lend a hand to her co-workers. That night, she seemed her usual self, cheerful and composed, with no hint of the tragedy that was about to unfold. As the clock neared closing time, Brianna began her routine tasks, wiping down tables and restocking supplies. She exchanged a few words with her co-workers, mentioning her plans to head home and study for an upcoming exam. At around 11:20 p.m., she clocked out, grabbed her coat, and stepped out into the crisp night air. The sky was clear, and the stars twinkled brightly, casting a serene glow over the small town. Brianna's car, a green 1985 Oldsmobile 88, was parked in the lot behind the restaurant. She had owned the car for a few months, and it had become a symbol of her independence. She unlocked the door, slid into the driver's seat, and started the engine. The car's headlights pierced the darkness as she pulled out of the lot and drove off into the night. The route from the restaurant to Brianna's home was a familiar one, a winding road that cut through the heart of Montgomery, passing by old barns and open fields. As she drove, Brianna's thoughts likely wandered to the future, to the plans she had been making to leave Montgomery and explore the world beyond. But Brianna never made it home that night. Her car was discovered the following morning, backed into the side of an abandoned barn on Route 118, just a mile from the restaurant. The sight was eerie. The car's headlights were still on, illuminating the weathered wood of the barn, and the driver's side door was ajar. Inside the car, personal items were scattered, including Brianna's wallet and a partially packed bag. The discovery of Brianna's car sent shockwaves through the small community. Her parents, Bruce and Kelly Maitland, were the first to be notified. The police arrived on the scene, treating it with the utmost seriousness from the outset. The abandoned barn, a dilapidated structure that had stood empty for years, now became the center of a baffling mystery. Investigators meticulously combed through the car and the surrounding area, looking for any clues that might explain Brianna's disappearance. They found a few items that raised more questions than answers: a broken necklace, a torn piece of fabric from Brianna's jacket, and a set of faint footprints leading away from the barn. As news of Brianna's disappearance spread, the community rallied together. Flyers with her photograph were plastered on every available surface, and search parties were organized to comb the woods and fields around the barn. The townspeople, driven by a mix of fear and determination, scoured the area, hoping to find any trace of Brianna. The police interviewed everyone who had seen Brianna that night. Her co-workers at the Black Lantern Inn described her as cheerful and in good spirits, with no signs of distress. Her friends and family echoed this sentiment, painting a picture of a young woman who was responsible and level-headed. Despite the extensive search efforts, no trace of Brianna was found. The barn, with its peeling paint and creaking timbers, stood as a silent witness to whatever had transpired that night. Theories began to circulate. Some believed she had been abducted, while others speculated she might have run away. But as days turned into weeks, hope began to wane, and the sense of unease grew. In the weeks following Brianna's disappearance, the police continued their investigation, exploring every possible lead. They reviewed surveillance footage from businesses along Route 118, hoping to catch a glimpse of her car, but the grainy images provided no new information. They interviewed known troublemakers in the area, but no one had seen or heard anything unusual that night. Brianna's parents, heartbroken and desperate for answers, made public pleas for information. They appeared on local news channels, urging anyone with information to come forward. The case drew the attention of state authorities, and soon, the small town of Montgomery found itself under the scrutiny of the wider world. The abandoned barn, once a forgotten relic, became a focal point of the investigation. Forensic experts examined the site, looking for any trace of evidence. They found faint tire tracks leading away from the barn, suggesting another vehicle had been present. The piece of fabric caught on the barn's doorframe hinted at a struggle, but without more concrete evidence, it was impossible to draw definitive conclusions. The mystery of Brianna Maitland's disappearance continued to haunt the community. The quiet town of Montgomery, with its picturesque landscapes and close-knit residents, was now overshadowed by a sense of loss and unanswered questions. The abandoned barn, standing silent and foreboding, held its secrets close, refusing to give up the truth of what had happened on that fateful night. Chapter 2. The investigation begins. The disappearance of Brianna Maitland quickly became the primary focus of the Montgomery police. Chief Marlowe, a seasoned officer with over 2 decades of service, led the investigation. The initial hours were crucial, and Marlowe knew that every second counted. The small police department, though limited in resources, was determined to find Brianna and bring her home. The investigation began with interviews. Marlowe and his team started at the Black Lantern Inn, where Brianna had last been seen. They spoke to her co-workers, who described her as cheerful and in good spirits on the night of her disappearance. According to Jenna, a waitress who had worked the same shift, Brianna had mentioned feeling a bit tired, but hadn't expressed any concerns or fears. As they pieced together the timeline of Brianna's last known movements, the police also spoke to her family. Bruce and Kelly Maitland were devastated but cooperative. They provided a detailed account of Brianna's recent activities and relationships. Brianna's mother, Kelly, recalled that Brianna had seemed preoccupied over the past few weeks, though she hadn't confided in her about any specific problems. The next step was to examine the scene where Brianna's car had been found. The abandoned barn on Route 118 was a decrepit structure, long forgotten by the town. The police cordoned off the area and called in forensic experts to comb through every inch. They found a few of Brianna's personal items in the car: her wallet, a partially packed bag, and a set of keys. There were no obvious signs of a struggle inside the vehicle, but the torn piece of fabric on the barn's doorframe hinted at something more sinister. Forensic technicians carefully collected evidence from the car and the surrounding area. They lifted fingerprints, took soil samples, and documented the faint tire tracks leading away from the barn. Every piece of evidence was meticulously cataloged, but initial results were inconclusive. The fingerprints found in the car belonged to Brianna and her family members, and the soil samples didn't reveal anything unusual. The police also reviewed surveillance footage from businesses along Brianna's route home. They scrutinized the grainy images from the few cameras that existed along Route 118, but none showed anything out of the ordinary. Brianna's car wasn't spotted in any of the footage, leading investigators to believe she had taken a less-traveled path. As the days passed, the investigation expanded. The police spoke to Brianna's friends and acquaintances, hoping to uncover any information that might explain her disappearance. They learned that Brianna had recently broken up with her boyfriend, James, a fact she had kept hidden from her family. James was brought in for questioning. He appeared genuinely distraught over Brianna's disappearance and cooperated fully with the investigation. He provided an alibi for the night she went missing, corroborated by several friends. In the meantime, the community rallied together. Volunteers organized search parties to comb the woods and fields around the barn. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers joined in the effort, driven by a mix of fear and determination. The townspeople plastered flyers with Brianna's photograph on every available surface, hoping that someone might have seen something that could lead to her whereabouts. One particularly distressing development came when the Maitlands received an anonymous letter. The letter claimed to have information about Brianna's whereabouts and included a cryptic message: "The truth lies where the light fades." The letter was turned over to the police, who analyzed it for fingerprints and handwriting. The message's vagueness added to the frustration and fear, but it also hinted at a deeper mystery. Chief Marlowe and his team followed up on every lead, no matter how tenuous. They spoke to known troublemakers in the area, individuals with a history of criminal activity, hoping to uncover any connection to Brianna's disappearance. One such individual, Lucas, had a reputation for being involved in various illegal activities. He was brought in for questioning, but he denied any involvement and provided an alibi for the night Brianna went missing. As the investigation continued, the media took an interest in the case. Reporters from local and regional news outlets descended on Montgomery, eager to cover the story. News vans lined the streets, and cameras captured every development. The increased media attention added pressure on the police, but it also kept Brianna's case in the public eye, ensuring that people remained vigilant and hopeful. Despite the extensive efforts, the investigation faced numerous challenges. The lack of concrete evidence and the myriad of rumors circulating in the town made it difficult to separate fact from fiction. Some whispered about a secret boyfriend, while others speculated about involvement in illegal activities. The police remained focused on the evidence, sifting through the noise to find the truth. One significant clue emerged when a witness came forward, claiming to have seen a dark SUV near the barn on the night of Brianna's disappearance. The description matched the vehicle of a local troublemaker named Charlie, who had a history of run-ins with the law. Charlie was brought in for questioning, but he had a solid alibi for the night in question, supported by multiple witnesses. Despite the setbacks, the police continued to pursue every lead. They interviewed people who had been in the vicinity of the barn on the night Brianna disappeared and examined any connections she might have had to individuals with a motive to harm her. The investigation was exhaustive and painstaking, with each clue leading to more questions. The community remained resilient, refusing to give up hope. Candlelight vigils were held in Brianna's honor, and her family made public pleas for her safe return. The case drew the attention of state authorities, who offered additional resources and support to the local police. As the investigation progressed, Chief Marlowe reflected on the complexity of the case. Montgomery was a small town where everyone knew each other, but the layers of secrets and hidden connections made it a challenging puzzle to solve. The abandoned barn, standing as a silent witness, held its secrets close, refusing to give up the truth. Chapter 3. Unearthed Secrets. The initial investigation into Brianna Maitland's disappearance brought more questions than answers. As the days turned into weeks, Chief Marlowe and his team realized that they needed to dig deeper into Brianna's life to uncover the secrets that might explain her sudden vanishing. Brianna's close friends provided valuable insights into her recent behavior. Although she was known for her bright smile and positive demeanor, they revealed that she had been under significant stress in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Brianna had recently ended a relationship with her boyfriend, James. While James had an alibi for the night Brianna disappeared, the breakup added a new layer of complexity to the case. Delving into Brianna's past, the investigators discovered that she had been working odd hours and had hinted to a close friend about a side job that paid well, but was not exactly legal. This cryptic statement led Chief Marlowe to explore the possibility that Brianna had been involved in activities that might have put her at risk. They checked with local businesses and residents, hoping to find clues about this mysterious side job. One lead took them to a local mechanic, Randy, who had known Brianna for years. Randy revealed that Brianna had asked him about fixing up her Oldsmobile, mentioning she needed it in top shape for a long trip. This conversation occurred a few days before her disappearance, suggesting that Brianna might have been planning to leave Montgomery. Another breakthrough came when the police received an anonymous tip about a secluded cabin in the woods, rumored to be a meeting place for illicit activities. Chief Marlowe and his team investigated the cabin, finding signs of recent occupation, discarded food wrappers, cigarette butts, and an old map of the area. Although the cabin provided no direct evidence linking to Brianna, it reinforced the theory that she might have been involved in something dangerous. At the same time, forensic analysts continued to examine the evidence collected from the abandoned barn and Brianna's car. The piece of fabric torn from her jacket suggested a struggle, but without more concrete evidence, it was impossible to draw definitive conclusions. The faint tire tracks near the barn were analyzed, revealing that they likely belonged to a large vehicle, possibly an SUV or truck, but the tracks were too degraded to provide a specific match. In a surprising twist, a former friend of Brianna's named Lisa came forward with new information. Lisa had moved out of town a year earlier but had kept in touch with Brianna through social media. She revealed that Brianna had been receiving threatening messages from an unknown number. These messages, which started a few weeks before her disappearance, demanded that Brianna stay silent and warned of dire consequences if she didn't comply. The police traced the messages to a disposable phone, making it difficult to identify the sender. However, this development led them to suspect that someone close to Brianna might be trying to intimidate her. Attention turned once again to her ex-boyfriend, James, who had been seen with a similar phony. James denied any involvement and allowed the police to search his home and vehicle, but nothing incriminating was found in. Amidst these investigations, Chief Marlowe discovered that the abandoned barn had a history of strange occurrences. Locals shared stories of the barn being used for clandestine meetings and unsavory deals. The barn's owner, an elderly man named Mr. Whitaker, was interviewed. He explained that the barn had been in disuse for years and that he had no knowledge of recent activities there. However, his demeanor suggested he was hiding something, and Marlowe couldn't shake the feeling that the barn held more secrets than they realized. The investigation also unearthed information about a local troublemaker named Charlie, whose dark SUV had been seen near the barn on the night of Brianna's disappearance. Charlie had a history of run-ins with the law and was known for his involvement in drug dealing and other illicit activities. The police brought Charlie in for questioning. He claimed he had been nowhere near the barn that night and provided an alibi supported by several friends. Despite his alibi, Charlie remained a person of interest, and the police kept a close eye on him. The case took another turn when Brianna's parents received an anonymous letter. The letter, written in uneven handwriting, claimed to have information about Brianna's whereabouts and included a cryptic message. "The truth lies where the light fades." This message led Chief Marlowe to theorize that Brianna's disappearance might be connected to someone trying to cover up their own secrets. The police analyzed the letter for fingerprints and handwriting but found no matches in their database. Meanwhile, rumors about Brianna's secret boyfriend persisted. The police investigated several young men in the area, but none of them seemed to fit the profile. Frustration grew as each lead seemed to end in a dead end. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the police continued to piece together a picture of Brianna's life. They discovered that she had been frequenting a local coffee shop where she often met with a mysterious stranger. The barista at the coffee shop remembered Brianna and described the stranger as an older man, possibly in his 40s, who always wore a dark coat and hat. This man had been seen with Brianna several times in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. The police reviewed surveillance footage from the coffee shop and found images of the man. However, his face was always partially obscured, and they couldn't get a clear identification. This mysterious stranger became a key focus of the investigation, and the police released his image to the public, hoping someone might recognize him. As the investigation dragged on, the police began to consider the possibility of foul play more seriously. They explored connections between Brianna's disappearance and other unsolved cases in the region, looking for patterns or similarities. The case also attracted the attention of private investigators and true crime enthusiasts who offered their theories and assistance. The community of Montgomery, while shaken by Brianna's disappearance, remained united in their efforts to find her. Candlelight vigils were held and fundraising efforts were organized to support the search. The town's close-knit nature meant that everyone felt a personal connection to Brianna's plight, and a collective determination to find her never waned. Despite the many twists and turns, the mystery of Brianna Maitland's disappearance remained unsolved. Each new lead brought hope, only to end in frustration. The investigation continued, driven by the unwavering commitment of Chief Marlowe, his team, and the entire community. Chapter 4. The Paranormal Element. As the investigation into Brianna Maitland's disappearance deepened, the abandoned barn on Route 118 gained a reputation not only as a crime scene, but also as a place of eerie occurrences. Stories began circulating about strange lights and ghostly apparitions near the barn, drawing the interest of paranormal enthusiasts and investigators. One of the first to approach the police about the supernatural aspect was a local historian named Margaret. She recounted tales of the barn's dark past, which included a tragic fire in the early 1900s that claimed the lives of a family who had lived there. According to Margaret, the spirits of the family were said to haunt the barn, their restless souls unable to move on. While Chief Marlowe and his team were initially skeptical of these ghost stories, they couldn't ignore the growing number of reports from residents who claimed to have seen or heard strange things around the barn. Flickering lights, mysterious shadows, and unexplained noises all contributed to the barn's ominous aura. In response to the public's fascination with the paranormal aspect of the case, a team of professional ghost hunters arrived in Montgomery. Led by veteran investigator Alice Carter, the team set up an array of high-tech equipment around the barn, including EMF detectors, night vision cameras, and digital recorders. Their goal was to capture evidence of the paranormal, and perhaps uncover clues that might aid the police investigation. Alice and her team began their investigation on a cold, clear night. The barn, with its weathered wooden beams and overgrown weeds, looked particularly menacing under the moonlight. The team conducted a thorough sweep of the area, noting any unusual readings or sensations. Their first night yielded some intriguing results. The EMF detectors picked up strong readings near the spot where Brianna's car had been found. The team also captured several EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. During their sessions, faint voices that seemed to say, "Help me," and "She's here." While these recordings were not definitive proof of the supernatural, they added to the growing mystique of the barn. The ghost hunters shared their findings with Chief Marlowe, who remained focused on tangible evidence, but appreciated the publicity that kept Brianna's case in the public eye. The local media covered the ghost hunters' activities, drawing even more attention to the case and keeping it fresh in the minds of the community. Margaret, the local historian, continued to provide valuable context about the barn's past. She unearthed old records that revealed the barn had been used for various secretive meetings over the decades, including rumored gatherings of a local cult in the 1970s. These revelations suggested that the barn had long been a place of dark activities, further complicating the investigation. The ghost hunters returned to the barn for a second night of investigation. This time they focused on the cellar, a part of the barn that had been largely overlooked. The cellar, accessible through a hidden trapdoor, was cold and damp, with walls covered in mold and debris scattered on the floor. As they explored the cellar, the team experienced a series of chilling events. One of the cameras captured a shadowy figure moving in the background, while another recorded sudden drops in temperature. Alice felt a presence brush past her, leaving her with a sense of foreboding. The climax of the night came when the team conducted a spirit box session, a device believed to facilitate communication with the dead. The static-filled box emitted a series of fragmented words, among which they clearly heard Brianna and hidden. These messages were unsettling, but also potentially significant. Despite these eerie occurrences, the police remained focused on more conventional leads. Chief Marlowe and his team continued to investigate Brianna's connections and activities. They revisited the theory of a secret boyfriend and looked into her interactions with the mysterious older man seen at the coffee shop. The investigation into the paranormal side of the case was not without its skeptics. Some residents dismissed the ghost stories as sensationalism, while others believed that the supernatural might hold the key to understanding Brianna's fate. The town was divided, but everyone agreed that the barn held a dark and undeniable presence. The ghost hunters decided to conduct one final investigation, this time inviting members of the community to join them. The event drew a crowd, including Brianna's parents, Bruce and Kelly, who were desperate for any clue that might lead to their daughter. The group gathered around the barn, their flashlights casting long shadows in the night. During the session, the atmosphere was tense. The ghost hunters shared their previous findings and invited participants to ask questions. As the night progressed, several attendees reported feeling a sudden chill or hearing faint whispers. The spirit box, once again, emitted the word Brianna, followed by safe. This final session left many in the community feeling both hopeful and haunted. While the ghost hunters packed up their equipment and prepared to leave Montgomery, the police continued their diligent search for concrete evidence. In the days that followed, a local reporter named Tim uncovered a new lead. He had been following the case closely and decided to investigate the history of the cellars and basements in the area. Tim discovered that many of these old buildings were connected by a series of underground tunnels, remnants of the Prohibition era when bootleggers used them to transport alcohol secretly. These tunnels, long forgotten, could provide a possible explanation for how someone might have moved around undetected. Chief Marlowe authorized a thorough search of the tunnel network, hoping to find any trace of Brianna or her captor. The search of the tunnels was arduous and fraught with danger. The old passages were unstable, and several areas had collapsed over the years. Despite the challenges, the police and volunteers pressed on, driven by the hope that they might find Brianna or uncover new evidence. During one such search, the team discovered an old, hidden chamber filled with discarded items and graffiti. Among the debris, they found a piece of fabric that matched the torn piece found at the barn. This discovery was significant, suggesting that Brianna might have been taken through the tunnels. As the investigation continued, the community of Montgomery remained united in their support for the Maitland family. The case, with its blend of mystery and supernatural intrigue, captivated the town and kept everyone invested in finding the truth. Despite the progress, the mystery of Brianna Maitland's disappearance remained unsolved. The ghost hunter's findings, while intriguing, had not provided definitive answers. The search of the tunnels, though promising, had yet to yield concrete results. Chief Marlowe and his team continued their relentless pursuit of justice, determined to uncover the secrets that lay hidden in the shadows. Chapter 5. Hidden Agendas. With the paranormal investigation drawing national attention and keeping Brianna Maitland's case in the public eye, Chief Marlowe and his team refocused their efforts on uncovering more tangible leads. The discovery of the underground tunnels had added a new dimension to the investigation, but Marlowe knew they needed concrete evidence to find Brianna and bring her home. The police began by revisiting all the people closest to Brianna, scrutinizing their stories and looking for inconsistencies. This process led them to uncover new, previously overlooked details about those in her inner circle. The hidden relationship. One of the most significant breakthroughs came from re-interviewing Brianna's close friend, Sarah. Under increasing pressure, Sarah reluctantly admitted that Brianna had been involved in a secret relationship with an influential figure in Montgomery. This revelation was shocking, given the public persona of this individual, who was known for his philanthropic work and close ties to the local government. The man in question, David, was in his early 40s and had a reputation for being charming and persuasive. His involvement with a teenager like Brianna was not only scandalous, but also illegal. When confronted, David initially denied any relationship with Brianna, claiming their interactions were purely professional, as he had been mentoring her on some projects related to local history. However, the police obtained text messages and emails that suggested otherwise. The correspondence showed a different story, a story of a secret affair fraught with tension and threats. Brianna had threatened to expose their relationship if David didn't help her with her plans to leave Montgomery and start a new life elsewhere. The search for David's alibi for the night of Brianna's disappearance was quickly disproven. He had claimed to be at a charity event, but witnesses reported seeing him leave early. Surveillance footage from a nearby gas station showed his car heading in the direction of the barn around the time Brianna vanished. Faced with mounting evidence, David went on the run. This sudden flight only made him look guiltier. The police issued an APB, all points bulletin, and every law enforcement agency in the region was on high alert. The private investigator's role. Simultaneously, the private investigator hired by Brianna's parents, Jack Thompson, had been conducting his own parallel investigation. Jack was a grizzled veteran with a reputation for solving difficult cases. His methods were unconventional but effective. He had been following David's activities closely and had uncovered financial records that suggested David had been paying off several individuals to keep quiet about his relationship with Brianna. Jack's tenacity led him to uncover that David had been in contact with Charlie, the local troublemaker whose dark SUV had been seen near the barn. Charlie, who had initially provided a solid alibi, was now under increased suspicion. Jack found evidence that Charlie had been receiving large sums of money from David, possibly in exchange for his silence or for more sinister reasons. The tunnels revisited. With the new information about David and Charlie's connection, Chief Marlowe ordered a more thorough search of the underground tunnels. The police, equipped with better maps and additional manpower, ventured deeper into the labyrinthine network beneath Montgomery. This time, they found more significant evidence. Deep within the tunnels, in a secluded chamber, they discovered items that belonged to Brianna: her backpack, a notebook, and a sweater she had been wearing the night she disappeared. The presence of these items indicated that she had been there, likely held captive for some time. Confronting Charlie, the police brought Charlie in for further questioning. Under the intense pressure and with the evidence mounting against him, Charlie's story began to unravel. He admitted to being paid by David but claimed he had no part in Brianna's abduction. According to Charlie, David had approached him to scare Brianna into keeping quiet about their relationship, but things had spiraled out of control. Charlie described meeting David near the barn on the night of Brianna's disappearance. They had argued, and in the heat of the moment, David had attacked Brianna. Fearing for his own safety, Charlie had fled the scene, leaving David to deal with the aftermath. David's capture. With this new confession, the police intensified their manhunt for David. Tips poured in from the public, who were now fully invested in the case. The breakthrough came when a tip led the police to an isolated cabin in the woods, where David was hiding. The capture was swift and decisive. David was apprehended without incident, and during the subsequent interrogation, he confessed to his role in Brianna's disappearance. He claimed that he had never intended to hurt her, but things had gotten out of hand when she threatened to expose their relationship. In a moment of panic, he had struck her, causing her to fall and hit her head. Believing she was dead, he had hidden her in the tunnels, hoping to cover up his involvement. Brianna's fate. David's confession brought a mixture of relief and horror to the community. He provided detailed information about where he had left Brianna, leading the police to a remote part of the tunnel system. A rescue team was dispatched immediately, and they found Brianna, unconscious but alive, in a hidden chamber deep within the tunnels. Brianna was rushed to the hospital, where she received urgent medical care. The news of her rescue spread rapidly, bringing a wave of relief and joy to the community of Montgomery. The media coverage, which had once focused on the mystery and the supernatural aspects, now highlighted the incredible story of her survival and the tenacity of the investigators who had found her. The aftermath. David faced multiple charges, including kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder. His fall from grace was swift and brutal, and he was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. The town of Montgomery, while relieved that Brianna had been found alive, grappled with the revelations of corruption and deceit among some of its most respected citizens. Brianna, though physically recovered, faced a long road to emotional healing. The support of her family and community was unwavering, and she began to rebuild her life with a renewed sense of purpose. She vowed to use her experience to help others, becoming an advocate for missing persons and a voice for those who had suffered in silence. The abandoned barn, once a place of dark mystery, was demolished, a symbolic act to put the past to rest. The tunnels were sealed, ending their long history of secrecy and danger. Montgomery, though forever changed by the events, emerged stronger and more united. The story of Brianna Maitland's disappearance and rescue became a powerful reminder of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of never giving up hope. Chapter 6. The Web Tightens. The capture of David and the dramatic rescue of Brianna Maitland shifted the investigation into high gear. While David's confession had provided critical insights, it also opened up new questions and avenues of inquiry. Chief Marlowe and his team knew that they had only scratched the surface of a much deeper conspiracy, intensifying the investigation. With David in custody, the police focused on corroborating his confession and uncovering the full extent of the network involved in Brianna's disappearance. The first step was to re-examine all evidence with a fresh perspective. Forensic analysts went over the items found in the tunnels and the barn with meticulous detail, looking for connections that might have been missed earlier. One of the key pieces of evidence was the financial records that the private investigator Jack Thompson had uncovered. These records showed significant payments made by David to various individuals, including Charlie. The police followed the money trail, which led them to other potential conspirators. These included local officials and business owners who had received hush money to keep David's secrets hidden. The role of the tunnels. The discovery of the underground tunnel system had been pivotal. The police mapped out the entire network, identifying all entrances and exits. This revealed that the tunnels connected several key locations in Montgomery, including the abandoned barn, David's property, and a few others seemingly unrelated sites. The tunnels had been used for smuggling during Prohibition, and now it seemed they had been repurposed for more modern illicit activities. A detailed search of the tunnels unearthed more clues. Hidden caches of documents, old photographs, and even videotapes were found in one of the secret chambers. These items provided a chilling glimpse into the extent of the activities conducted underground. The documents included detailed logs of meetings, transactions, and other activities, implicating several high-profile individuals in the town, uncovering the network. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that David had not acted alone. The network extended far beyond him, involving a web of corruption that had infiltrated many aspects of Montgomery's social and economic life. The police identified a core group of conspirators, including a prominent local businessman named Richard and a corrupt law enforcement officer Deputy Marlowe. Interrogations revealed that Richard had been using his legitimate businesses as fronts for various illegal operations, from drug trafficking to money laundering. Deputy Marlowe had facilitated these activities by ensuring that law enforcement turned a blind eye. Brianna's discovery of this network, through her relationship with David, had placed her in grave danger. A dramatic event. The turning point came when the police organized a series of coordinated raids on properties linked to the network. These raids were meticulously planned, involving state and federal law enforcement agencies to ensure maximum coverage and surprise. The goal was to arrest all key figures simultaneously, preventing any from fleeing or destroying evidence. The raids were executed at dawn, with officers storming several locations across Montgomery. At Richard's mansion, the police found a fortified basement filled with incriminating evidence, ledgers, computers, and large sums of cash. Richard was arrested without incident, though he initially feigned ignorance of any wrongdoing. At Deputy Marshall's home, the situation escalated quickly. Realizing the police were closing in, Marshall attempted to escape. A high-speed chase ensued through the winding roads of Montgomery, ending in a dramatic standoff at an old, disused mill on the edge of town. Surrounded and out of options, Marshall eventually surrendered, but not before making several threats that hinted at further, yet unknown conspiracies, changing the investigation's direction. With the main conspirators in custody, the police faced the daunting task of piecing together the full extent of the network's activities. The seized documents and electronic devices were analyzed by forensic experts, revealing a complex web of transactions and communications that spanned years. This analysis uncovered connections to other criminal organizations beyond Montgomery, suggesting that the local network was part of a larger and more sinister operation. Among the seized items were detailed plans for expanding the tunnel network to facilitate even more extensive operations. The plans included schematics for new tunnels and hidden chambers, indicating that the conspirators had long-term ambitions. This discovery emphasized the importance of dismantling the entire network to prevent its resurgence. Brianna's role. Throughout the investigation, Brianna's courage and resilience became increasingly apparent. Despite her ordeal, she provided crucial information that helped the police unravel the conspiracy. Her notes and personal writings, found among the items in the tunnels, detailed her suspicions and the evidence she had gathered against David and his associate. Brianna's bravery inspired the community and the investigators. Her determination to uncover the truth, even at great personal risk, played a vital role in bringing the network to justice. The community of Montgomery rallied around her, organizing support groups and counseling services to help her and her family cope with the trauma they had endured. A community transformed. The fallout from the investigation was profound. Montgomery, once a seemingly idyllic town, had been exposed as a place where corruption and crime had flourished in the shadows. The arrests of David, Richard, Deputy Marshall, and others sent shockwaves through the community. Many residents were shocked to learn the extent of the corruption, especially involving individuals they had trusted and respected. However, the revelations also brought about a sense of renewal. The town came together to support the Maitland family and each other, determined to rebuild and ensure that such a tragedy would never happen again. Local authorities, with the help of state and federal agencies, implemented new measures to prevent corruption and improve transparency. The abandoned barn, long a symbol of mystery and fear, was demolished in a public ceremony. The land was cleared, and plans were made to create a memorial park in honor of those who had suffered because of the network's activities. This park would serve as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and community spirit. Conclusion. The web of corruption that had ensnared Montgomery was slowly but surely dismantled. The investigation revealed the dark underbelly of the town, but it also highlighted the resilience and determination of its residents. Brianna's disappearance had been a catalyst for change, exposing the hidden rot and paving the way for a brighter, more transparent future. Chief Marlowe, reflecting on the case, knew that the fight against corruption and crime was ongoing. However, he was heartened by the strength and unity shown by the community. Brianna's courage had inspired a town to stand up against darkness, and her story would continue to resonate for years to come. Chapter 7. Confrontations and Confessions. With the main conspirators in custody, The investigation entered its final and most intense phase. Chief Marlowe knew that while they had made significant progress, the full extent of the conspiracy had yet to be unraveled. The police were under immense pressure to ensure that justice was fully served and that all those involved were brought to light. The interrogations begin. David's confession had provided a framework, but there were still many gaps to fill. The police set up a series of intensive interrogations with the arrested individuals, starting with David himself. Despite his earlier confession, David was evasive, often falling back on claims that he was coerced or misled by his associates. Chief Marlowe and Detective Lisa Carter, a skilled interrogator known for her ability to break down suspects, led the sessions. They used a combination of psychological pressure and evidence presentation to crack David's defenses. The turning point came when they confronted him with the personal writings and notes of Brianna, which detailed his threats and manipulations. Faced with undeniable proof, David began to break down, revealing more about the network and its operation. Richard's confession. Next in line was Richard, the prominent businessman whose enterprises had served as fronts for various illegal activities. Richard maintained a facade of innocence, but the financial records and other evidence were damning. Detective Carter played a crucial role in breaking Richard's guard. She meticulously presented the evidence, tying his business transactions to known criminal activities. Under the weight of the evidence and realizing the futility of his denials, Richard started to talk. His confession was a bombshell. He detailed how his businesses had laundered money for the network and how he had used his influence to ensure that local authorities, including Deputy Marshall, looked the other way. Richard's confession also implicated several other prominent figures in Montgomery, who had either knowingly participated in or turned a blind eye to the illegal activities. Deputy Marshall's breakdown. Deputy Marshall, the corrupt law enforcement officer, was a tougher nut to crack. His initial stance was one of defiance, claiming he was being framed. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The high-speed chase and subsequent standoff had already painted him in a negative light, and the financial records and testimonies from David and Richard further cornered him. Chief Marlowe and Detective Carter used a strategy of isolation and psychological pressure. They presented him with the possibility of a lengthy prison sentence and the complete ruin of his career. Gradually, cracks began to show in Marshall's tough exterior. He admitted to accepting bribes and facilitating the network's operations, but insisted that he had never directly harmed anyone. When confronted with the evidence of his involvement in the cover-up of Brianna's abduction, Marshall broke down. He confessed to knowing about David's actions and even aiding in the initial search for Brianna to divert suspicion away from himself and his associates. His confession was detailed and comprehensive, providing critical insights into the network's inner workings. A community in shock. As the confessions rolled in, the community of Montgomery was rocked by the revelations. The local media covered the developments extensively, and the story gained national attention. Residents were shocked to learn the extent of the corruption that had infiltrated their town. Trust in local institutions was severely shaken, and there was a growing demand for accountability and reform. Brianna's family, while relieved that significant progress was being made, struggled with the emotional toll of the revelations. They had to come to terms with the fact that people they knew and trusted had played roles in the conspiracy that had endangered their daughter. The community rallied around them, offering support and solidarity. The web unravels further. The investigation didn't stop with the initial arrests and confessions. The police, with assistance from state and federal agencies, continued to probe deeper. They uncovered additional layers of the network, including lower-level operatives and facilitators who had played supporting roles. These individuals were brought in for questioning, and many cooperated in exchange for leniency. The forensic analysis of the documents and electronic devices seized during the raids revealed connections to other criminal organizations. It became clear that the Montgomery network was part of a larger, more sophisticated operation. This discovery led to further investigations in neighboring towns and states, resulting in additional arrests and the dismantling of several related criminal enterprises. A surprising ally. In the midst of these developments, an unexpected ally emerged. Margaret, the local historian who had initially provided information about the barn's dark past, came forward with more crucial details. She had continued her research independently and discovered old records that suggested the tunnels had been used not only during Prohibition, but also in more recent decades for various illegal activities. Margaret's findings included blueprints of the tunnels that revealed hidden chambers and escape routes that the police had not yet uncovered. Her information proved invaluable, leading to the discovery of additional evidence and the capture of more conspirators who had been hiding in these secret locations. Brianna's courage. Throughout this process, Brianna Maitland played a pivotal role. Her detailed notes and personal writings had been instrumental in guiding the investigation. Despite her traumatic experience, she showed remarkable resilience. With the support of her family and therapists, Brianna began to participate actively in the investigation, providing first-hand accounts and clarifications that helped the police piece together the full story. Brianna's bravery inspired many in the community and beyond. She became a symbol of hope and resilience, and her story highlighted the importance of standing up against corruption and injustice. Public interest in her case remained high, and she received numerous messages of support from people across the country. The true nature of the threat revealed. As the investigation neared its conclusion, the true nature of the threat to Brianna and the town of Montgomery became clear. The network's activities had not only endangered individuals, but had also undermined the integrity of local institutions. The collusion between criminals and corrupt officials had created an environment where illegal activities could flourish unchecked. The dismantling of the network was a significant victory, but Chief Marlowe knew that the battle against corruption was ongoing. He implemented new protocols within the police department to ensure greater transparency and accountability. The town council also took steps to improve oversight and restore public trust. Conclusion. The final months of the investigation were a whirlwind of activity. The police worked tirelessly to wrap up loose ends and ensure that all those involved were brought to justice. The community of Montgomery began the slow process of healing, determined to rebuild and move forward. Brianna Maitland's courage and resilience remained at the heart of the story. Her determination to uncover the truth had been the catalyst for exposing the network and bringing about change. As she continued her recovery, she became an advocate for missing persons and a voice for those who had suffered in silence. The story of Montgomery, once a seemingly idyllic town, became a powerful reminder of the dangers of corruption and the importance of vigilance. The lessons learned from Brianna's case resonated far beyond the town's borders, inspiring others to stand up against injustice and fight for a better future. Chapter 8. The Final Revelation. The climactic conclusion. The atmosphere in Montgomery was tense yet hopeful as the investigation into the criminal network neared its climax. With David, Richard, and Deputy Marshal in custody, Chief Marlowe and his team focused on gathering the last pieces of evidence and preparing for the final trials. The town had rallied behind Brianna Maitland, whose strength and resilience had become a beacon of hope. The full extent of the network. As forensic analysts continued to sift through the evidence, they uncovered even more shocking details about the criminal network's reach and influence. The documents, computer files, and financial records painted a picture of an intricate web of corruption that spanned beyond Montgomery, involving several high-profile individuals in neighboring towns and states. Among the discoveries were communications between David and a shadowy figure known only as the Architect, believed to be the mastermind behind the network. The Architect had orchestrated the various illegal activities, using David and others as pawns to maintain control and avoid detection. A race against time. Chief Marlowe knew they needed to act quickly to apprehend the Architect and dismantle the remaining parts of the network. With the help of state and federal agencies, a task force was formed to track down this elusive figure. The team included seasoned investigators, cyber experts, and undercover operatives, all working tirelessly to bring the Architect to justice. As the task force delved deeper, they identified several potential leads. A crucial breakthrough came when they traced a series of encrypted messages to a luxury apartment in New York City. Surveillance operations confirmed that the apartment was frequented by a man fitting the Architect's description, a wealthy, reclusive businessman named Victor Lansing. The Architect unmasked. Victor Lansing was a name that had come up in previous investigations, but his involvement had always been suspected rather than proven. With the new evidence, the task force obtained a warrant to search Lansing's apartment and arrest him. The operation was planned with military precision to avoid tipping off Lansing or his associates. At dawn, a team of heavily armed officers stormed the luxury apartment. They found Lansing in his office, surrounded by state-of-the-art technology and stacks of documents. He was taken into custody without incident, but his arrest sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld. Lansing, it turned out, was not just the architect, but also a financier for various illegal operations worldwide. The trials. With Lansing's arrest, the final phase of the investigation shifted towards the legal battles. Prosecutors worked around the clock to prepare for the trials of David, Richard, Deputy Marshal, and Lansing, among others. The courtroom was packed with media, residents, and supporters of Brianna, all eager to see justice served. Brianna, though still recovering, testified with remarkable composure. Her detailed accounts of her abduction, captivity, and the threats she had received were powerful and moving. Her bravery in facing her abductors in court inspired everyone present. David's trial was the first to conclude. He was found guilty on multiple counts, including kidnapping, assault, and conspiracy. The judge handed down a severe sentence, ensuring David would spend the rest of his life in prison. Richard and Deputy Marshal faced similar fates, with their extensive involvement in the network leading to lengthy prison terms. Victor Lansing's trial was the most anticipated. His defense team tried to argue that he was merely a businessman with no direct involvement in the crimes. But the mountain of evidence, including his own communications and financial transactions, was overwhelming. Lansing was convicted of multiple charges, including racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. His sentencing marked a significant victory in the fight against organized crime. The community's healing process. With the trials concluded and the key figures behind bars, the town of Montgomery began the long process of healing. The revelations of corruption had been a severe blow, but the community's response was one of resilience and determination to rebuild. Brianna Maitland's recovery was slow but steady. She continued to receive support from her family, friends, and therapists, gradually reclaiming her life. Her experience had changed her, but it had also given her a new sense of purpose. Brianna became an advocate for missing persons, working with organizations to raise awareness and improve search and rescue efforts. A memorial and a new beginning. To honor Brianna's bravery and the community's resilience, a memorial park was established on the site where the abandoned barn once stood. The park featured a memorial plaque dedicated to all victims of corruption and crime, symbolizing the community's commitment to justice and transparency. The town also implemented new measures to prevent such corruption from taking root again. These included stricter oversight of public officials, enhanced community policing initiatives, and increased transparency in local government. Reflecting on the journey. Chief Marlowe, reflecting on the entire investigation, recognized the profound impact it had on him and his team. The case had tested their limits and revealed the depths of human depravity, but also showcased the power of resilience and community spirit. Marlowe felt a renewed sense of duty to protect and serve, inspired by Brianna's courage and the community's unwavering support. A final revelation. In the aftermath of the trials, a final, unexpected twist emerged. During the analysis of Victor Lansing's communications, investigators discovered encrypted messages suggesting the existence of other hidden networks operating with similar methods. This revelation hinted that the fight against such criminal organizations was far from over. Determined to prevent future tragedies, the task force expanded its scope, using the lessons learned from the Montgomery case to identify and dismantle other criminal networks. The battle against corruption and organized crime continued, driven by the memory of Brianna Maitland and the town that stood up against darkness. Conclusion. The story of Brianna Maitland and the town of Montgomery became a testament to the enduring power of hope, courage, and community. Through their collective efforts, they had exposed and defeated a deeply entrenched network of corruption, setting a precedent for others to follow. As Brianna looked forward to the future, she knew that her journey had just begun. With the support of her family and community, she was determined to make a difference and ensure that no one else would have to endure what she had. Her story, and the story of Montgomery, would continue to inspire and remind people everywhere that even in the darkest times, there is always a path to justice and redemption.